Hello, I'm Dr. John McClain, and thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. And in this podcast, I'd like to talk about the future of the church and the culture of the United States. And so let me bring up here a little bit of a graph that I've created. And this is based upon research and reading I've been doing over the last many months, even the last year, and compiling just information. And this is what I would say a summary of what I see going on generationally in the church and in the culture of the United States. And I've rounded things off. There are a number of different studies. Let me move down here just to show you some of the sources, and then we'll go back up and talk about them. But there's much information from the U.S. Census, Lifeway Press, the American Bible Society has done a lot of research the last 5 years or so, in particular, Pew Research, Gallup, the Association of Religious Data, and all of these things are available online to us, and we should have some sense about what is going on in the big picture of the church and culture in the United States. And so I've brought those statistics together into what I would say are some important summary points. And then I have divided them according to the traditional generation nomenclature or names. Elders represents all of those that are 80 plus years of age. Then you've got the baby boomers, 65 to 80 or so. The millennials, 50 to 65, Generation X, Z, and now what they're calling Alpha. And again, I just want to emphasize, I have rounded up or just rounded down because my purpose is not to put an exact number on something, but for us to see some important trends that the church is going to have to adapt and adopt to, and that we as a culture, as a country and citizenship, are going to have to make some changes with. So here are the ages: the elders, the boomers, the millennials, X, Z, and now what they're calling Alpha. Now, of the elders, 70% of Americans who are 80 plus identify as Christian. Now, that might be any denomination. It certainly includes all the various cults, and it also, in some ways, identifies as, well, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not Hindu, I'm Christian. So it's a very broad category. Of those that are 80 plus, we have this new category that's developed over the last many years called the nones, N-O-N-E-S, and that is, they have no religious affiliation. They're kind of agnostic about things, and I would call these what I have named practical atheists. They believe maybe generally in God, but they live as though he does not exist. Now, 10 years from now, only 20% of these the 80 plus, are still going to be alive. Now, of these who identify as elders, 60% of them say that they have read something of the Bible, that the Bible is of value, and that they hold truths from the Bible. It doesn't mean that they're evangelicals. It doesn't mean that certainly that they're fundamentalists, but that they have a general positive view of the Bible. And then the other one that is important is patriotism. And, the elders are the most patriotic. About 60% of the elders are patriotic. They're very pro-America, pro-democracy, and those things that add to a citizenship of culture. As we go down in the age list, we see a shift from citizenship to civil rights or individual rights or identity rights and wokeism and critical race theory and all of those things I've addressed in other podcasts on my YouTube channel, and you can look at those. But my main point is to show that there's going to be a tremendous decline, really kind of a cliff drop off in the next 10 years as this elders generation, the most conservative, the most Christian, the most family orientated, die off, and other generations age up and take over leadership positions. Of the baby boomers, that would be everybody from 65 to about 79. 60% of them identify as Christians. 30% of them say that they're nuns. 85% of them will be around in 10 years. 50% of them have an appreciation for the Bible, and 50% of them have an appreciation for citizenship and the role that one should have in supporting America. Now, just notice as we go down, millennials, 50 to 64, only 55% identify as Christian. Notice how the nuns are growing, 40%. 90% of them will still be around 10 years from now. Only 40% of them identify the Bible as a significant, meaningful book to engage. And only 45% of them identify as patriotic. And so you want to just kind of glance at this and see the decline. As we have a decline in generations age-wise, we have a decline in how they currently identify with Christianity, getting down to Generation Z, the 20 to 34-year-olds, only a quarter of them. More and more are nuns, non-religious, irreligious. They might be interested in spirituality, New Age, or whatever. They're looking for spiritual, emotional, psychological gimmicks to make them happy. They're going to be around in great numbers in 10 years, but only 25% of them have an appreciation from the Bible. And notice the drop off in patriotism that we're seeing. Only 35% of them believe in America. There's a turn towards, bigger government and socialism and a lot of anarchy. And so, just pause if you need to the program and just look at this overall decline. Now, my main point is for this part is simply this. If we look 10 years into the future, And almost 80% of the elders are gone. Now they're going to be in their 90s, and they're not going to be as active. They're not going to be as physically strong. They're not going to be as influential or whatever. What we're going to see 10 years from now, if the trends are as they seem to be going, only 35% of people in America are going to really be identifying as Christians. When you take the population from the boomers down to the alpha, and over 55% of them are going to be clearly identifying as nones, practical atheists or agnostics or unaffiliated. 20% only of the population will have, some knowledge, some appreciation for the Bible, and only 35% of them, it's predicted, are going to have a kind of pro-America, pro-democracy outlook. And we see this. What does America do with problems? They legalize it, they tax it, and they compartmentalize it in cities and put the burden on the American worker, and it's just disastrous. And so what I want church leaders and believers to appreciate here is that we are in for what could be a big cliff drop off in 10 years. And we need to look at this and just say, well, you know what? It's the elders and the boomers who are primarily the biggest financial givers. The elders are going to be gone. The boomers are going to be on limited income. And the church is going to be dependent upon millennials and X and Z and alphas to be supporting it. Look out over your church today, and you'll see that the main attenders, generally speaking, are gray hair, they're older, and they are fading from the prime of the strength of their life and their financial earning power and things like that. So the church is in for a drop-off, and we're going to have to make some changes. Generation X and Z, and probably Alpha also, they're not into the traditional church attendance. They're not into the traditional worship service. They're not into church. They are open to spirituality. They're open in many ways to ideas, but those ideas have to be presented a whole different way. And no longer can we say, "Thus saith the Lord," or the Bible says this is right and this is wrong. We have to take new apologetic approaches with the absolute truth of Scripture and present it in a way that is more palatable to them, in this sense, that we speak it to them without them pulling up all of their radar defense mechanisms and not being able to hear. An example would be when I talk to people about, for instance, transgenderism, I speak to them first and foremost about all of the health, the life, the quality of life issues, the sociological, the psychological. I don't bring up the spiritual in the biblical until, I've got them listening and concerned. about the lifestyle choice and the damages that lifestyle choice engages. So this is what we have to do in the future. The church is going to have to take the truth of God and find a new model and a new way of engaging other people. And, you know, like we could talk about online things and Zoom meetings versus in-person meetings. And I'm not promoting those things. I'm just saying that that's the way of communication right now. Apologetics is going to have to engage artificial intelligence, which is really not artificial or intelligence. It's manipulated algorithms for proposed outcomes. Now, to this day, 85% of Christians state that they trusted Jesus Christ before age 20, which means that the church needs to continue and even re-energize their ministry with children. And it has to be a re-energizing of the ministry to the children, not just through the Bible, but through different kinds of clubs and communities that are involved in sports, that are involved in life skills, that are involved in critical thinking, that are involved in research ability, and just focusing in on children and parents, focusing in on the family unit as much as we can reconstruct it. Now, last thing, blue states versus red states. We are seeing a tremendous shift. And this, again, you can look this up yourself. It's part of the Pew Research, this map, but we are seeing some significant shift in the populations of our states. And people moving from the liberal, progressive, open coasts to the center of the country and to the south of the country. And we're going to see more and more, quote unquote, red states, democratic states, losing population, and more blue states or Republican states gathering population, gaining population. And particularly the big question is going to be, who's going to handle the immigrant crisis the best as far as governmentally, but how is the church going to handle and engage that? Because whether we believe it's right or wrong, and everything in the Bible and other things would say it's wrong, it's the wrong way, we still need to engage these people. So, you know, you can look this over, and this basically, the darker blue it is, the more conservative, religious. This measures religiousness. So it's not just Christian, but obviously Christian is the biggest component in there. And then the lighter it is, the more irreligious, and even to the point of anti-religious. So once again, there's lots of information out there. The United States Census, Lifeway Press, American Bible Society, Pew Research, Gallup, Polls, Association of Religious Data, and I have summarized and rounded out the statistics, because my main point is we have to see the decline, and how do we turn that decline around by finding ourselves adapting and adopting to these various generations who are not going to get involved in the traditional church service from the Reformation period. And we've seen this the last 20 years. You know, there aren't midweek services, there aren't Sunday evening services. We don't have alternatives much anymore, although they're out there, to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, where we are teaching life lessons and work ethics and all those things that are important for being a citizen and being a Christian citizen. As always, please send me any feedback that you might have. Dr. John McLean at gmail.com, DrJohnMclean at gmail.com, and share with me your thoughts.